Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. I'm your host, Gorgeous George, and with me as always, some of the sharpest MMA minds in the biz. This week, we got Simon Samano, educated in San Diego, living in LA, but his heart is in San Francisco. Originally from the mean streets of Santa Ana, California, it's Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. Now he calls Las Vegas home. Danny Segura is back, nacido en Bogotá, Colombia. Now he's holding it down for us in Miami. What a great crew we got. Goes is doubling up on the ones and twos. Let's get started, folks. The biggest fight from this past weekend saw Marlon Vera defeat Dominic Cruz in the main event at UFC on ESPN 41 in San Diego. Both fighters fought well, with Cruz taking a 2-1 lead going into round 4. Cruz was very active and put a lot of pressure on Chito, while Vera was patient but potent. And then, boom, that head kick lands in round 4. Whoo, what a fight. Guys, how serious should Chito Vera be taken as a UFC bantamweight contender? That's the question to start off. 4 minutes are on the clock. Simon, you're leading off.
All right. Well, first and foremost, let me start off by saying I owe an apology to Marlon Chito Vera, because I did pick Dominic Cruz to win this fight. And I did it on the basis of thinking that fight IQ and experience would win out. But boy, I was wrong. And you know who else is wrong? Henry Cejudo. He's also wrong. He owes Marlon Chito Vera an apology, talking about he's not impressed with that fight because, as you pointed out, Chito was down 2-1 going in to the 4th round. But let me tell you something. That was part of the plan. All of that was part of the plan. Chito told us this after the fight. He told us that he got some that text message from Jason Perillo, his coach, about seeing that if he threw something that Dominic would lean to the right with his shoulder down. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Boom. And he gets caught. So look, guys, to answer the question, I think everybody should be taking Marlon Chito Vera very seriously. This is the guy with the second most UFC victories at 12. He's got the most UFC bantamweight stoppage victories. He's got the second most UFC bantamweight knockouts. I'm telling you, he's right there at the top 5. He may not move up in the rankings this week because of who's ahead of him. He does have that loss to Jose Aldo, who fights this week coming up. He does have a couple other guys who are fighting. So some things have to shake out. But everybody above Chito Vera has been put on notice. That guy is coming for you.
All right, I love it. Goes, what are your thoughts on Chito Vera?
Speed and power, guys. How do you not take him serious? This guy's a player in this division. You got to give him his props. You look at Dominic Cruz, all right? He was getting up there in age, but Dom looked pretty fast to me. He looked like he had a decent game plan. I think what this came down to was tactics, as Simon said. He dropped that hand. He got hit. Hey, Marlon took advantage of a very good situation. It's a great statement win for him and for Ecuador. Ecuador is on fire with their fighters, really, when you think about it. So what happens going forward? Look, what's one thing that UFC fans, old school fans, always talk about? We miss the tournaments. Guess what? Underneath all this, we're having a tournament right now, whether you realize it or not. Okay, Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley, Jose Aldo, Davishvili, Vera, Cruz, Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw. This is a tournament. And what happens to the guys who face off early in tournaments is they kind of get forgotten about a little bit. It sucks, but this is a what have you done for me lately sport. And I think this might hurt Vera a little bit as far as what happens. We got to see what happens with these matchups going forward. But he's very worthy of being talked about with these guys at the top. I mean, he's got that speed, he's got that power, and he's smart. He's got good fighter IQ. So we have to see how the rest of this plays out, but expect this guy to probably have a title shot sometime in 2023.
That's true, Goes. Last impressions important. I know that from my breakdancing days. And don't forget, Yadong and Sandhagen. They're going at it too. Danny Segura, close things up here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not taking Chito seriously at this point, there's something wrong with you. You're making a mistake because he's ranked in the top 5, so he's got an important number next to his name. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 2 fight of the nights, 2 performances of the night. And then on top of that, he just finished Dominic Cruz, who had never lost outside of a championship fight. And as Goes mentioned, he was still very game, even at 36 years of age. So Chito Vera is 100% a player at 135 pounds and a title contender and a threat to the belt. He might not be a favorite in every single matchup in the top 5, but 100% he's a player, 100% he's game to win against anybody in the top 5. So you have to take him seriously. And look, at worst, At worst, Chito Vera is one fight away from a title. One fight away. I mean, this is, as Goes mentioned, this is a tournament, but instead of brackets, what we have here is who can impress the most. And right now, Chito Vera put the bar quite high. So I think the only people that may surpass him with victories are Sean O'Malley or Jose Aldo. They got tough matchups in front of them. And not only that, they have a tough performance to beat, because Chito Vera, that's as good as it gets. So I think he's leading the pack for title contenders right now.
Yep, and I think the bantamweights are leading the pack. We got to officially say it's the most exciting division in the UFC. All right, guys, moving on. The state of California is one of the few states that releases fighter pay, and that's always a fun discussion. But before we move on to the discussion, here's what UFC President Dana White had to say regarding fighter pay from a recent Q&A he did with GQ magazine. Fighters are always going to want to make more money. Boxing has always been destroyed because of money and all the things that go on. It's never going to happen while I'm here. Believe me, these guys get paid what they're supposed to get paid. They will eat what they kill. They get a percentage of the pay-per-view buys, and the money is spread out amongst all the fighters. If you don't like it, there's a simple solution to this problem. Go start your own MMA organization. No barrier to entry. Knock yourself out. Pay them whatever you want to pay them. It's been done before. How's it worked out for the other guys? Not well. Mind your business. That's a hell of a quote. What did you guys think of White's latest musings on this topic? And what were your first thoughts when you saw the fight purses for UFC San Diego? Goes, it's on you, sir. 4 minutes.
My first thought was Dominic Cruz made $175,000 for a main event fight. Okay. That means he would have to fight 4 times at that rate just to make the league minimum in Major League Baseball, or fight 100 times and he make the team minimum on the San Diego Padres. If you're going to super team, do it right. Look, this situation cannot be ignored. All right. Hey, man, big Dodger fan here. Situation can't be ignored. It's not media. Media is not making this up. Your own fighters are coming out and they're saying this. I don't have a problem with some of the things Dana White says. It's the way he goes about it. It's the way he tries to convince people that everybody else is crazy. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, they get pay-per-view points, some fighters, but not all of them. And even then, the majority of this roster, you got to pay your coaches. You got to pay your camp. By the time everything gets back to you, that slice of the pie is tiny, man. And boxing, I grew up a boxing fan. All right. I love boxing. It's not dead. All right. It's still entertaining. And if it were dead, then why are all your champions trying to fight boxers? Francis Ngannou wants Tyson Fury. Kamaru Usman wants Canelo. Even Nate Diaz is leaving the box. So boxing is not dead either. You have to do something, Dana White. You have to change things. Nobody's saying it has to be this astronomical change, but something has to be done, because it's not us making this up. It's your own fighters.
Wow, good stuff from Goes, spitting some venom. All right, next up is Danny Segura.
Yeah, I mean, Dana White can say whatever he wants, but at this point, the facts are the facts. I mean, we've already had data from the UFC antitrust lawsuit that indicates that the UFC roughly pays between 16 to 20% to its fighters. Compare that to other leagues, as Goes mentioned, that's quite low, and that's just a fact. So Dana can say whatever he wants. They eat what they kill, this and that. You know, the fighter pays just fine, but the facts are the facts. It's not a fair cut of the pie. And I would also add this. Dana White also mentions, you know, hey, just go ahead and start your own league if you're not happy with it. But that doesn't address what's being discussed. That's really nothing to do with the topic. It's like saying there's a corrupt government. And, you know, I know this is a bit of a, you know, out of the box example, but it's like saying there's a corrupt government saying, well, start your own country. Like what? That has nothing to do with the actual discussion of what's actually going on in the government, what's actually going on in this case with the UFC. So, yeah, Dana, again, he's a promoter. His interest is defending the UFC, you know, maximizing profit. So I understand why he's going to say what he's going to say. That's quite frankly his job. But at the same time, that doesn't mean, you know, we're supposed to believe it. So it's already out there. Fighter pay is not fair compared to other leagues. And yeah, I mean, what else can I add? I feel like we've already discussed this a ton, and it is what it is, right? As Max Holloway says.
Danny, I love that little term, that little phrase you used. It's perfect. A fair cut of the pie, man. I mean, that honestly is stronger than people think. Simon, go over if you have to, man. Clean the bases. These guys are on second and third. Strong.
You know, I wish when it comes to this topic, we could have a serious discussion with Dana White about it. I mean, that's the one thing. That's not the one thing that bothers me. There's a lot of things that bother me about this, but the fact that we can never have an actual discussion with Dana about this, anytime he gets asked these questions, he gets instantly irritated and he dismisses, as you guys have pointed out, and what was mentioned in this quote. He starts talking about boxing being destroyed. What does that have to do with anything? And what kind of claim is that anyways? He starts talking about this, that, and the other. You look at a league like the NFL, okay, and they have an ongoing issue with the lack of minority coaches being hired at the NFL level, black coaches. Roger Goodell gets asked a question about that by somebody last year at a press conference before the Super Bowl. He gets put on the spot by a reporter who asks him a question about it. He gives a serious answer because it's a serious issue. Fighter pay is a serious issue that is worth a serious discussion and worth a serious examination. And so even if Dana feels a certain way internally, he should at least give the topic and the issue the time of day, at least publicly, to say, hey, look, we can do this, we can do that better. Fighters are complaining about pay, and maybe some stuff gets done, but at the very least, take it seriously. That's all I'm asking, is take it seriously.
Yeah, and guys, since we're already over, I want to add this too. As soon as the fights ended, I watched Lopez and Campa box. All right, Teofimo Lopez, great boxer, and I enjoy watching them. But you know what? Something told me look up their purses, and I did. 1 million to show for Lopez, 350,000 for Campa, and then with their little bonuses, they were going to take it, to 1.3 and 500 grand, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm thinking, okay, I enjoyed the fight, but I enjoyed Chito and Dominic more, man. And not just because I'm an MMA fan. Like Ghost says, we're a boxing family. Something has to still continue leveling out.
And just to say, how is Dominic Cruz not surpassed the Teofimo Lopez equivalent in MMA? Teofimo Lopez to boxing is not what Dominic Cruz is to the UFC. Right. So how is it 175,000 compared to 1.3 million or whatever you just said? That's crazy.
We gotta close the gap. All right, good.
Chito
stuff,
and Dom
guys.
are infinitely more famous than Pedro Campa, and neither of them got close to what he's making. So,
yeah,
right.
Exactly. All right. Well, we're not getting away from it. We're sticking with the money theme here, guys. This weekend, the UFC broke another arena record for total gate. The San Diego crowd was loud and energetic throughout the night. Lots of memorable fights, tons of highlights from beginning to end. However, the standard 200K was given out in bonuses. Are you okay with the randomness of the extra bonuses, or should the UFC have a standard formula, i.e., like all fighters who get a finish get a bonus? So across the board, that's what I'm talking about with the standard formula. 4 minutes on the clock. Danny, get the party started.
Yeah, to me, I like the bonuses. It's a little bit of a wild card because you don't know who's going to get it until, the fights are all over. And, it's fun seeing, a fighter react like, hey, you won fight of the night, or hey, you won knockout of the night. And it's fun seeing their reaction, especially if it's a fighter that doesn't make that much money, say like somebody on the prelims that's just starting out. And 50K, it's, almost life-changing money, right? Like you can do a lot of stuff with that. So I like the bonuses, but for me, the bigger issue is, again, the bonuses is just the cherry on top. I don't really put a lot of stock in them. It's just a fun little thing to have, a fun little element in each card. But to me, the main thing is fighter pay. If we are going to, discard bonuses and just make fighter pay fair and up the percentage that the fighters get as far as revenue, I could care less about the bonuses. So the bonuses are nice, but again, my main issue is with fighter pay. The only thing I would add to it is if you're going to keep the bonus structure system, they've been around 50K for like almost a decade now. 50K means, something completely
not what it used to
than what it meant a year ago, 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago. So if anything, up the bonuses, because it's got to be at least equivalent to the time. I mean, imagine in like 20 years, it's like you win 50K, you'll probably go to, I don't know, the way inflation is going now, you probably go to McDonald's and, get something from the dollar menu. But you got to up that at least to keep it, with the times.
50K used to be able to buy the Mr. and the Mrs. their cars. Now it's just a down payment on the Mrs.'s Tesla. Simon, you're up next on this topic.
Yeah, I think my response to this is I just wish the UFC wasn't like hard and fast on a set number, which is what it is. They've shown, that they're willing to go beyond it, but most of the time we're just getting the 2 performances of the night and 1 fight of the night. So a total of 4 fighters out of 26, 28, 24, 30. Who knows how many fighters on a given card. I wish the UFC would go into an event with an open mind and no set number locked in. And I actually mean that both ways. Maybe there's weeks where 4 fighters aren't worthy. Maybe it's just a performance of the night, and there wasn't really a fight of the night. That has happened before, you know? And so just keep that open mind. I mean, look at this card alone. That's great. Congrats to Marlon Vera for his. Congrats to Nate Landwehr and David Onama, who absolutely deserved their bonus. Congrats as well to Tyson Nam. But what about Yasmin Araguay? No, said it wrong. Aragui. Auregi. Yasmin Lucindo. What about Priscilla Cachoeira, who finished Ariane Lipsky in 65 seconds? What about Angela Hill and Lupi Godinez, who put on a hell of a performance between the two of them? That was a fun fight. You know, what about Gabriel Benitez and his finish? You know, what about Josh Quinlan and his knockout early in the night? I mean, this was just one of those events where you just wish everybody, you know, who deserved 50K would have gotten 50K. And you know the UFC can afford it. They're swimming in money. That's my response to this.
The takes are great, Goes. If you have to take it over, go ahead. It's your turn.
Well, look, if you look at the NBA, the NFL, NBA, they're constantly evolving. They're constantly changing things. So MMA should be the same. I like a finish bonus, but here's the thing, guys. There's 7 fights in the UFC Hall of Fame. Only 2 of them have finishes. Just because you have a finish doesn't make a fight great. Not always, all right? Can you imagine Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin going at it and not getting a bonus for that because they didn't finish? Yuri and Glover, right? Are you only going to give one to Yuri because he got the finish? So you have to kind of tweak these things a little bit, but at the same time, you want an honest fight. That's what this is all about, right? We can't just be giving all kinds of crazy amounts of money to fighters to get a bonus. Then all of a sudden you have Charles Oliveira pulling guard at the touch of gloves or throwing punches like he's Don Flamingo and Mike Tyson's Punch Out. We want an honest fight. We want to know who the better fighter is. So here is what I am going to propose. Of course, we want the limit raised, right? More than the 100K that they offer for all, you know, we need to get it way higher. But here's the problem, okay? What we need to do is divide this up. I'm going to pretend as if we're just going to keep that same structure that we have now, all right? Give 100,000 to the fight of the night. I'm good with that. That's fine. Even though I think David got more than 50 grand for his finish of Goliath. But let's move on with whatever's left over. Split it up, okay? Whatever that number is. So what's left over? 100K. Split it up amongst all the fighters that got finishes. If only one guy got it, then he gets the whole thing. And guess what? If nobody finished, carry it over to the next card. And pay-per-views, they get more money than I think a fight at the Apex, right? There's a bigger gate. Why not? If you don't want to carry that money over, donate it to charity. Care for the kids. Hey, shout out to Chris Angel, Gwen Stefani. You guys do great stuff. But we have to change things, guys.
It goes thinking outside of the box.
Yeah. You know, for me, guys, it's just this whole, man, I was in London. I was feeling it. Well, you were in San Diego, and San Diego was popping. And then in
Absolutely
Singapore,
was.
he gave a lot of bonuses to Singapore. He wasn't in Singapore. He was in Miami with his son. You know, respect. He was spending family time. It's just that whole confusing thing. One time, I think it was Diego and Ellenberger or Cameron and Diego. They got 100 grand out of nowhere. He just said, I'm going to give him 100 grand. He told Shogun Hua, I think after Lyoto Machida fight, UFC 104, I'm paying your taxes. And those guys are making like 300,000 each. And it was probably the equivalent of about 100 grand of a bonus that he gave. So what is it, you know? So I don't know. I guess just the randomness of some fighters that I think get used to what they're seeing because business is up every year. They're killing it. And all of a sudden they go home with just what they thought they were going home. I think the numbers should be bumped up. All right.
We are so overtime this show, but let's go.
We are. Let's go.
This Latino time, 100%. That's when you know you got a full Hispanics on.
There you go.
We'll dedicate this episode to Corey Anderson, man. Big time overtime. All right. Topic 4. Rory Macdonald. He retired this past weekend after competing at 2022 PFL Playoffs 2. Jesus, guys, why don't you just call it 2 Playoffs 20-PFL-22? It would be just as confusing. Sorry, Red King, for getting off track. Fellas, I'll keep it simple. What was Rory Macdonald's legacy in the sport, in your opinion? Simon, we're coming back to you. 4 minutes.
I think if I could sum it up in one word, I would say his legacy is complicated. And I'll tell you why I think it's complicated. For anybody who may be newer to MMA and wasn't around when Rory Macdonald came into our consciousness many years ago, he came in as a very highly touted prospect. He was the GSP protege. I mean, think of him the same way you think of Aaron Pico, or the same way you think of AJ McKee, or the same way you currently, right now, in this moment, think of Bo Nickel. Like, that's how Rory Macdonald came into this sport. And so, when you come in with that much expectations, it's hard because he never really fulfilled those expectations. I mean, it's very much similar to like the current Khabib Islam Makhachev dynamic. I mean, he was George St. Pierre's protege, training with him, same gym, TriStar in Montreal. I mean, it's hard to fulfill that. And so, Rory obviously reached that fight with Robbie Lawler, that epic clash. And then afterwards, he was never really able to break through. I mean, he's got big wins. He's got a lot of big wins. Nate Diaz, BJ Penn, Damian Maia, Tyron Woodley. He's got a win over a former UFC champion, but he never won a UFC title. And I give Rory props for winning the Bellator championship. And he definitely did it against a great fighter in Douglas Lima. But for that reason, though, because he can never really break through as UFC champion, I think it's complicated. But congrats to him on a really solid career. And I wish him nothing but the best. He's 33. He has his youth. And I hope he continues to have his health beyond this.
Yeah. Goes, you're next. You met him as the Water Boy. He finishes as Red King.
Yeah, I mean, we've been covering him since he was a kid, dude. And I don't know if you remember this, George, but he was very coachable. And when he would come into studio, even in between commercials, he would be talking with Frias about strategy and tactics. Yeah, he was a very coachable fighter. And what he represented going into the sport was he was one of them first fighters that came in already well-rounded. For years, we would have wrestlers trying to learn jiu-jitsu, strikers trying to learn wrestling. This was a guy that from day one could kind of do it all. Very well-rounded guy. But he never ran away from a matchup. And that's what stands out the most for me as his legacy. As Simon said, Lawler, Penn, Diaz, Condit, all those guys, those are big names in the sports. And some of those guys won titles. So I think it's very impressive. But he was able to do it across a couple organizations, right? PFL, Bellator, UFC. So he did it at the highest level, guys. Props to you, Rory Macdonald, for everything you did. Send your jacket size to the UFC, because for sure that Macdonald fight and Robbie Lawler, that's going into the Hall of Fame.
Nice. All right. Danny Segura, finish things off.
Yeah, both Simon and Goes did a fantastic job at summing up his career and talk about what he represented to MMA. I mean, he represented so many things, right? On top of what they said, I'd like to add that he's probably the second greatest Canadian fighter ever in mixed martial arts, with number one being George St. Pierre, obviously. Following that, I mean, he did win a Bellator title and defended it twice, which is not an easy thing to do, especially beating Douglas Lima in 2018. We know how game that fighter was back then. In fact, soon after that, a lot of people were talking about Douglas Lima potentially being in the same level of Kamaru Usman, and that was a thing for maybe like a year or two. So certainly a fantastic fighter. He just ran into Robbie Lawler, who at the time is just a complete savage, and even came close to winning that fight as well. So just a complete warrior. I think that's what stands out. Just an assassin. I'm always going to remember, him all battered, bloodied up, just staring at Lawler after the bell rings and both of them sizing each other up. I mean, the guy just was just a fierce competitor and just a complete warrior. Few people like Rory Macdonald are going to come by in the sport, and just a fantastic fighter. Like Go said, at the time, he was very, very advanced. Good wrestling, good striking, good jiu-jitsu, great athlete. I mean, he had it all. He did have it all, and he had a fantastic career, even though towards the end, he had a few losses here and there that perhaps he didn't look great. Father Time catches everyone, especially considering the damage that he's taken for our entertainment. I mean, he's given us some wars. So, all the best to Rory Macdonald. I wish him health. I wish him happiness, and congrats on a fantastic career.
Nobody could ever question Rory Macdonald as one of the toughest guys we've ever seen in the cage.
Yeah, although I got him as the third best fighter in Canadian history. It's got to go GSP. Man, did you guys see Ty Domi from the Maple Leafs, Toronto Maple Leafs? That's one of the best goons ever. Then Rory. All right.
Womp womp.
Finishing things up here, looking ahead to this weekend's action, we have some intriguing matchups across the board. UFC 278, of course, with the current pound-for-pound king, Kamaru Usman, in action. He's got Leon Edwards from the UK trying to take that title away. doesn't want him to get his 6 title defenses. We also got MVP, speaking of the UK, versus Platinum Perry. He's coming over to bare knuckle. Paige Van Zant's on the same card. Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold. Usyk versus Anthony Joshua in boxing. 3 major belts at stake there. Aldo versus Davishvili. What fight are you targeting to possibly steal the show this weekend, and why? Goes, take it away. 4 minutes.
Well, it can't be boxing because boxing's dead, right? But look, I'll give
Destroyed.
you a hint.
It's destroyed.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, guys. I don't even know who tunes into it, but I'll give you a hint. I'm wearing their gloves right now. It's bare knuckle, man. MVP versus Mike Perry. Look, you got to give these guys props. I'm going to tell you who. All right, we got to start off with bare knuckle for even thinking about this. Bellator for being open to this. Cross promotion. How many times do we talk about this? We want to see more of this. MVP for risking a lot, guys. He's risking a lot for going over there and fighting a guy, a savage like Mike Perry. This is a sport that's notorious for not giving you any room. If they could put you in a phone booth and do this, they would do it. There's hardly any room to operate if you're the type of striker that MVP is. So he's going to have to engage, and it's a very dangerous fight. I love this idea. At the end of the day, we're paying $5 for it or something like that. You got to watch it. You got to support this type of stuff. And on top of that, they have other quality fighters on there. Hey, man, you want to see Paige Van Zandt? She's also going at it. But this is all without even any trash talk. And you know that's going to heat up with those 2 personalities. So I am all in on BKFC.
Yeah, shout out to Dave Feldman and Scott Coker. They made it happen quick, too. Danny, you're up.
Yeah, what to me the media member in me is like, oh my god, this week is gonna be so hectic, right? But the fan in me is like, yeah, so many good fights. I mean, this is just an awesome weekend in combat sports across, again, bare knuckle boxing, and MMA. So I'm really excited for this weekend. I would like to point out, even though there's many great fights, I'd like to point out Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili. I think that is a fantastic matchup just in a vacuum. Like, Jose Aldo, is he still the savage? Is he still top 5? We just saw a legend in Dominic Cruz lose, but Dvalishvili, clearly a very good fighter, beating everybody up in the top 10, top 15, but can he deal with a top 5? This is easily his biggest test. So just the matchup itself is fantastic. And then just sort of zooming out and talking about the greater things, we talked about just a few minutes ago about how there's a little bit of a tournament going down at bantamweight. Well, I'm also excited about that. We right now Chito is the front runner, but Jose Aldo, with a win over Chito, has the chance to maybe sort of take that spot if he does something exciting here against Merab Dvalishvili. So all in all, I'm really excited about these top 5 matchups that are coming up in the bantamweight division, and this is one of them. So I'm super excited, guys, about this weekend.
All right, Simon, you are going to be the last one on this week's Spinning Back Clique. Let me throw one more in there, man. Chris Wade and Brendan Loughnane. Keep an eye on that one, too. Simon.
Okay, I'm glad you just got that in there because I was going to say, where's the love for PFL? Where's the love for Kayla Harrison coming back? I mean, that's happening this weekend, and that's going to be big. Although the only way that could be big is if she loses, which I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think any of us think that that's going to happen. So I can't pick Kayla because she is expected to steamroll. The one I'm going to go with is Luke Rockhold against Paulo Costa. That's a fight that I think can steal the show. These are 2 guys who I think are hungry for a victory. I mean, Paulo Costa lost 2 fights in a row to Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori. Didn't look particularly good in that fight against Marvin Vettori. We haven't seen Luke Rockhold since July of 2019 when he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz back at UFC 239 when he moved up to light heavyweight. But now he's back at middleweight and he's got something to prove. We've heard him talk real big leading up to this fight, real big, not just about this fight, but about other guys that he wants to fight later on, like Israel Adesanya he's the kryptonite for Israel Adesanya and this and that. So, Luke, former champion, it's time to show this week that, that he means what he says. This is a big moment. And look, let's be real. Between both of these guys, maybe not the UFC's favorite person, a 3rd loss in a row, they probably make a lot of money. Could they get cut after 3 losses in a row? We'll see. I think it's an intriguing fight, and it should be an exciting fight.
Yeah, I can't wait. And you were down in San Diego, man. You could see Luke Rockhold wanted to
Luke
fight
was
on Saturday. He was so pumped up for his boy Chito Vera. So, yeah, this is a huge fight between Costa and Rockhold. Guys, awesome stuff. And, folks, Goes and I will be hosting a UFC 278 watch-along here on MMA Junkie. You got to check it out, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. keep an eye on that tab, on the schedule tab, if you want to know the start times for PFL, UFC, Dana White Contender Series. We cover it all. And of course, the YouTube comments. Get in there. I'm always in there throwing elbows with you guys. Sometimes we're fist bumping, sometimes we're discussing, always keeping it lively. And we'll see you all next week when we recap all these events here on Spinning Back Clique.